Hello.
Welcome. Thanks for coming along today. First of all, I just want to ask, who's heard of High Five You Rock? Good. You were around yesterday to see it. Basically, highfiveyourock.com was kindly donated, handed over to myself in December by Doug Robar. And since then, I've been trying to make High Five You Rock into a community-based project. And this is basically our talk on how we moved High Five You Rock from version 4, I think, of Umbraco, onto version 8 on the cloud. So I'm Owain. You can find me on Twitter as Scottish Coder. And I'm a Umbraco developer at Lewis, which is a company, a gold partner company in Edinburgh. And I've been working there for coming up to about 2 years now. I'm an Umbraco MVP. I was honored to have my MVP renewal this year as well. So that's kind of cool. Certified Umbraco Master and custodian of highfiveyourock.com.
My name is Chriztian Steinmeier. I go by the Twitter handle GreyState, but people usually know me by my nose and my green guitar. So I am a front-end developer at a company called Vokseværk. It's in Aarhus in Denmark. We have had the company for about 8 years, and we're only 3 people, and one of them is my brother, and we're having super great time doing Umbraco websites. And we've been using Umbraco Cloud since the early betas, actually. And it suits my way of working very well. I'm I don't know what you say, I'm a 2-time MVP and a 1-time renewal, so is that 3? That's 3 MVPs. And I'm the custodian of the 24 Days in Umbraco project, together with Jan, the real bad Jan, and Dave Vostenbox. I think that's how you say that, actually. And you know where to go if you want to write for us. Find us and say, I want to write for you. Imposter syndrome.
So who knows what imposter syndrome is? Okay.
Quite a lot.
Who suffers from imposter syndrome? Yes, we're not alone.
We all do.
So basically, imposter syndrome, this is what Wikipedia says it is. What I class imposter syndrome is, I'm going to get found out, I can't do my job. And I've struggled with this for probably longer than I realized. Basically, originally I found I had an interview with Microsoft when I was a student at Napier University in Edinburgh. Made it through to like the last 100, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. Went down to Microsoft at their headquarters, and then went into a room, and they gave me a blank bit of paper and said, tell us, if you can, write a bit of code of how you'd multiply 2 numbers together without using a multiply function. That's pretty much what I did for 5 minutes. I went absolutely blank, couldn't think what I was doing, didn't get the job. No surprise there. And from that day on, I was like, I can't do this. I'm not a developer. I've got a degree in software engineering. I still can't do this. And I've struggled forever after that. So that's hence the reason we're here, to basically try and give you tips on how to get past those issues. I'm definitely not cured as an imposter. I think I'll always feel this in some way, but hopefully we can give you some tips. Here's some examples of how I've struggled with my imposter syndrome. So I started up a blog, owen.codes, but the plan of sharing all my code, being open, honest, this is how I code. I've done one example, and then it's become a community-based Umbraco website, doing blogs, basically introducing people to the Umbraco community. I don't share my code because I bleep, expletives in here. I just worry about exposing myself. I've done one pull request. which is this cool kind of changing the drop down into colors. I've done no more after that because I'm worried that I'll get caught that bit of code that I've written is rubbish and somebody will go, look at him, he's an imposter. Yeah, I am. So I don't talk code to other developers, so please don't. I stand there and go, yeah, okay, yeah, I know what you mean. So yeah, I'm quite awkward when it comes to that. I don't do technical talks until today, so please be kind. I think we'll be saying this a lot. It's like, don't judge us. And so all the things that we're doing here, it works for us. If any of you know better ways of doing it, please come and see us, because we're open to learning. I think that's the thing, as a developer, we're always looking to improve ourselves. So yeah, if there's anything that we show you up here and you go, why are you doing it that way? Because it worked. That's why we're doing it that way.
So it's not just for developers, but my story is, as you could see from the green guitar, and what you couldn't see was my very long hair on that photo. I was usually be found like this. I played a lot of rock and heavy rock guitar, and I got somehow I managed to get into the Royal Academy of Music in Denmark, the music conservatory. So I had 4 years of training as a music teacher and a guitar teacher, and I've done that a lot. But the music conservatory is something where a lot of musicians there are playing jazz or very interested in jazz and very good at it, very, very good at it. I have the teammates I had are all stars in all kinds of music shows in Denmark. They play in all the famous orchestras and such. And as a rock and heavy rock guitarist on in a setting like I was creeping around the walls every day, saying they're gonna find out that I can't do this. And it's a giant pile of, because I was good at playing guitar. I was accepted as a student there, so that's something I was telling myself all the time. Said, well, I actually beat someone else in getting here, so I must be worthy. So, but then since I switched to being a developer full time, and that's all. I have no education in that. It's all self-taught. Yeah, it's just doing it, and that has worked for me. So it's not just for developers. Let's just say that.
So some key tips, I guess. Where do you start? Don't panic. Number of times I've kind of jumped into a project and just went, like, especially like if you're trying to do pull requests right now. Some of the pull requests that are on the list look really daunting. And I have to admit, I've done this time and time again. I've had a look at the list and went, I can't do that, and just panicked and walked away. But don't. We're all friends here. We're all imposters. Yes, we're not alone. Ask tons of questions. No question's a bad question. No question's a silly question. There's plenty of places that we can do that. We can go on to our, whatever you want to call it, the community place, the forum. We can post on the community Slack, which is a fantastic resource that we've got. You can post on Twitter. You're kind of reduced by how long the question is on Twitter, but even if you put a link back to our, it's a cool place to go. But also remember, you might actually be a trailblazer, and what I mean by that is what you're doing might be the first time it's being tried. So just because you can't find the answers doesn't mean it's not possible. It's just that actually you're setting a new path down a route that somebody eventually behind you will be kind of like going, right, so this is how you did it. And that's what we kind of hope to show with this. We're not saying that we're trailblazers. Maybe we are. Who knows? But we're just trying to show that we've asked a lot of questions and this is what we found. Umbraco Cloud.
So why did we go to Umbraco Cloud in our company? There's probably 3 reasons. One of them was the easier upgrades. The story is I have always and probably always will be on a Mac developing. Visual Studio doesn't work for me, and so we've been doing the FTP thing for years, developing the site, throwing stuff with FTP up on the site. And when Niels introduced me to a very early vision of Umbraco Cloud, I was ready right away, because I'm fairly good at Git, and the way that they're using Git to transport the code was very appealing, and the thing that you can upgrade your site very simply by adding a development environment, testing the upgrade there, making sure that it works, and then you know when you push it up, it will work. So that's one of the very easy things for us to say, okay, this is much easier, because before we probably didn't upgrade very many sites, and I think that's what HQ have been saying too. It's, well, people don't upgrade. If it works, they don't upgrade. Then there's the content and code flow, where you basically throw all your code one way and get the content the other way, and that's working very fine for us again, because the editors just want to do their thing, and we would very much like to be able to code new functionality and throw that on the site when it works, and that works very well on Umbraco Cloud for us as well. And then there's the release confidence term that is exactly that, where when you're forced to do your edits on a development environment, making sure it works there, pushing that onto the next one, you know that the thing that ends on the live side is the same thing that just worked on your development side, because there are no surprises in software development. So usually it's very, very, very seldom stuff that doesn't work like that. So that's why.
So yes, this is kind of how I went around setting up Umbraco Cloud to work on my local environment and setting up for the Hi-Fi VRock website. So it's simple. Only if you know how. I hate the word when you see it on forums and on Slack and Twitter, and you go, it's dead simple, just do. Yeah, it's dead simple if you know how to do it in the first place. So hopefully I'll kind of go through this, and I'll show you how, again, I've done it. Set up the cloud environments, download and run the UAS command once you find it in the documentation. Then set up your projects, code your site, deploy your site. Some top tips that I found were, first of all, make sure your Visual Studio is up to date. If you're not running kind of one of the more up-to-date versions of Visual Studio, I couldn't get Cloud to work. Didn't realize that because I just kind of cloned my repo, ran it on Visual Studio, then read the documentation that said it had to be this version or later, and hey presto, it worked. Also, I had issues with the Git credential manager remembering a password from a previous attempt. It didn't tell me what the problem was, it just goes, nah, not going to do this. So quickly went on to Git or Twitter, I think it was on Slack, and somebody went, oh, have a look on the Git credential. Oh, there it is, yeah. Delete my username, password, and off we went again. I had to get my head around that I needed 2 Git repos for this. I presumed that if I download or clone the repo from Cloud, that's all I'm going to be working on. But because I've used the Umbraco as a service command, it splits things out, and which I'll cover in a minute, into a .web and a .core, and you need to have 2 repos for that. And use the UAS command. I tried to set it up manually. What a nightmare that was. go with the recommended option. I was trying to do things because I wanted to learn how it's done, but to be honest, it's just easier doing it this way sometimes. So setting up the cloud environment, you can have it as just live, you can have it with development and live, or you can have development, staging, and live. We've set up as as the project, we've got a development and a live site. We're really lucky that our cloud environment's been sponsored by Umbraco, so we can actually spin up these environments. We don't incur the charge. But if you're on a standard version of Umbraco Cloud, which I think is €25 a month, you do need to pay extra for other environments. If you upgrade to the second tier, I think it's €400 a month. I don't know. I'm getting nods. So it's quite a lot, but then you can spin up your environments without getting charged, I believe. One of the problems that we found was to make it an open source project. Obviously, you want to have other users helping contribute. The only way that I could do that was by actually adding the users to the back office in Umbraco Cloud, which again would usually have a €5 per month charge for that on a starter plan. But luckily, we're not having to pay that, but it could become quite expensive if you're trying to add more and more people into the back office. So setting up the project, now, oh, this is going to be fun. I need to press that play button, and I don't have it on this screen. Here we are. Let's try. Yes. Okay, so this is the UAS command. So you double-click that, put in the clone URL, which comes from Umbraco Cloud, type in your namespace, so hi5urock, and it goes off and does its thing. I don't know what it does. It just does its thing. It's magic. It takes about 4 or 5 minutes. So I've kind of done a time lapse of this to kind of like go and set up the site. But what you'll notice on the far side is it'll create a .core and a .web folder in a second. And it'll also create a Visual Studio solution, which is really nice. So there it goes. So that basically sets up your entire site for you. So it's now pulled down your version of the site from wherever your clone is. So this was a clone from our development site, and we're pretty much ready to go. So all I need to do then is double-click the hi5urock solution. It fires up Visual Studio, and I've got everything ready for me. When I tried to do this manually, I had to add references, I had to include different packages and things, and it was just a nightmare. So this was much, much easier. And now the clicker doesn't work because I need to come back here. There we go. So this is me setting up the Git repos. If I'd put down all my steps, I would have 5 slides of just saying set up, delete, set up, delete, set up, delete, set up, delete. I did it so many times trying to get my head around this. But eventually what I found out was, as I said, you need 2. You need the hi5urock.web, you need the hi5.core, and it's 2 repos within the one folder, which at the start, I didn't think you could actually do, but you can. So what happens is the hi5urock.web, that is the code that goes up onto Umbraco Cloud. The hi5urock.core gets shared out onto our GitHub. And so we can put in our controllers and our models out there so that people can pick them up. It's not ideal for an open source project, but it kind of works for us. So that was that.
So, as I mentioned, I'm on a Mac, so I can't do all the Visual Studio stuff. I can't run the UAS command. But what I was trying to do was to use some of the same prerequisites or the same setup as HQ has outlined with the main folder and the extra projects inside. So, but I think one of the key differences that again is the one that's ticking me with I'm going to be found out, is that my main focus on a site like this is actually the front end build. It's not the cloud project, or for me, the front end is all I do, and then I put that on Umbraco Cloud as it is. So for me, the main folder is the project name. It would be High Five You Rock here, and then I have a core folder, which is just, again, I'm such an imposter because I made the folder because, well, it's there, but if you see me put C# code in there, there's probably something wrong. I do sometimes have a view helper or something that I nicked from someone online, probably. But the front-end project is the one I'm using a lot. And the .web folder is the thing that's cloned directly from the Umbraco IO site. So what I do is I have a source folder in the front end. I use a Mac app called CodeKit, which does all the stuff that those much better than us use gulp and all those things for. This file is one app that just does JavaScript and less compilation, all that. It builds everything into the build folder, which I have a deploy script, which a little known man like with the name Ken Jacobsen, he was here just 10 minutes before. He helped me a couple of years ago by getting a hand of what I need to do here, because this is just a script file that takes the build assets and puts them down in the web folder, and then I can just use Git as usual up in the cloud, and it is so nice. It just works. So that's how I do it. One thing you can use on a Mac is HQ has made a command line interface file that you can use to connect to Umbraco Cloud. You have your site. You connect using that client, and what it does is it pulls down some files from the site, and it watches your assets folders, CSS and JavaScript, and when you change that, it teleports them to the cloud and borrows the rendering engine on cloud and gets the result back and shows it to you in a live reload browser. And so when you can have that, change something to green and see it be green on the screen right away. I don't use it that much, but sometimes when I need to tweak a view 15 times until everything works, it's nicer to do that than having to use Git every time, because when you Git push to cloud does a build thing, probably builds a completely new site every time. Oh, he's doing this again. Okay, oh, you changed the comma. Okay, yeah. So that's what it does, and sometimes it's easier to just have this closer loop using that. Yes.
Woohoo! There we go. So this kind of things that I've ran into, kind of building the site over time. So originally the site was on a V7 site, and then V8 came out, and it's a common theme I've heard throughout the conference this week. It's like, oh, well, better put it onto V8 then. So we moved to V8, and things we've ran into are like schema mismatches, user account errors, deploy issues. I've seen so many red lines of code. What does this mean? So basically, look out for these. You will hit them. And my recommendation is check out the documentation. The SWAT team have been really good at kind of keeping the documentation up to date when they see these errors, and it's really in depth. There's videos on how to fix them, and if you can't fix them, then use the questions options that we've had. But I will guarantee you will hit some of these. Things that I kind of tried to say is just remember is this is what's worked for me, that I should really kind of do a git pull first, then a push, then do a backup restore. Because what I found was that a lot of these errors are actually because I wasn't doing things in the right order. So once I kind of got this into my head, I see these errors a lot less now. And just because this, one of the things that really caught me out was when you're doing a restore. I'm not sure how big this is going to be, but yeah. So trying to restore your content, I didn't actually know the restore was in there because content doesn't look like a button. So this might be a PR that somebody can jump on. PR doesn't, the content part doesn't actually look like a button, so I couldn't find out how to restore my content. It was just by chance I kind of scrolled over. Probably if I read the documentation, it would have told me this, but I was kind of like really keen to get stuck into it. So you kind of just across the top, hit the restore. This then pulls down your content from the cloud, because this is actually local. So I'm bringing down anything that's been made different up on, like, so your doc types and some content and things like that. And it just pulled it all down.
But you're right, it does not look like a button. It looks like a heading.
Just have a quick look again. So yeah, it just looks like a word. Until you hover over it and you see the 3 buttons, boom, there you go. You've got, so you bring down from development, restore, and it comes down local. So if anybody fancies that, quickly get your laptop out. I've said this is kind of hurdles of Umbraco Cloud, because I don't think it's showstoppers. I don't think it's going to cause major issues, but the problem that we found with trying to make it an open source community project is that it's not designed as an open source environment. It'd be really nice if there was a way to kind of have the functionality of doing pull requests as if it was kind of like just core CMS. The issue that we've kind of found is that when you're working on Umbraco Cloud, we have to give everybody access to the back office, as in Umbraco.io, not the Umbraco /Umbraco, which it kind of doesn't feel right to me. So, and I'm now the point of failure. So if somebody wants to contribute to high5urock.com, which you're all welcome to do, or do a recruitment drive while we're here, you basically have to contact me, and then I add you to Umbraco.io so that you can pull down the site and do a restore and everything like this. So it doesn't really work brilliant like that. Each developer needs to be added to the project. That's what just saying. So you kind of, again, just give me a shout. And one issue that we've specifically found is that the API keys, I put them into my web config, but then I have to share that with people I potentially don't really know. So I'm giving everybody access to the project, but ideally it'd be quite nice to be able to hide this in Umbraco.io somewhere, just so it's a bit more secure. Not that I don't trust anybody here, we're all friends, but it would be nice just kind of that side of things. Yeah, so limitations.
Yeah, so here's a couple of limitations I've run into, specifically from our work with Umbraco. IDN domains, it's internationalized domain name. So we're a company in Denmark, and we have Danish clients, and some of them have domain names with weird characters in them. It's kind of a bummer to find out on the day that you're launching their project that Umbraco Latch does not work with IDN domains. It just doesn't work. It's a plugin or an extension in the Azure library behind that doesn't support it. So the only way you can right now can have an IDN domain protected by Latch on Umbraco Cloud is using a CDN like Cloudflare in front of it. So they handle the domain stuff, and that's already out of my league. So, yeah. And then there's an upper limit on host names. I found out that the very hard way, and thank you to all of you who responded to my tweet that day, because that was a tough one. But what I knew from talking to support and other people was that the 15 host names you can put on a site through the UI is just a limit that's in there. Support can add more if you need that, but there's an upper limit, and we hit that one. And the takeaway is that I should, of course, have asked, I should have talked to Umbraco HQ about this this project because it was quite a lot bigger than it should have been built another way on Umbraco Cloud. But that's a hard limit. But one of the things that is so awesome is the SWAT team. They are incredibly good at keeping high spirit and helping you all the way. I just want to highlight George, Haldor, Sophie, Eric, Morten, Dennis, Gabriel, Rhiannon, Jesper, Daniel, and Rune. Those are just some of those. Those are all of those that I have been in contact with, and we have been in contact with
on a daily basis.
Yeah, on a daily basis. It's just how's it going today?
Oh, hi, Owain.
Yeah. But also one of the things you always forget is you have a problem. Oh, it's now. Someone helps you. Great, and they come with a solution. Say you should try this, and you say, okay, I'll do this. Next morning, you come in. There's a message from Sophie or from Haldor saying, so how did it go yesterday? Did it work? And you always forget that you need to go in and say, hey, thanks, this worked. Because if you forget that, you need to you go all the way and say thank you. And they are very good at getting back to you too. So we love them. Yeah. We actually do.
Yeah. Without them, I can guarantee we wouldn't have had High Five Europe ready for Codegarden this year. But I'll be going around giving them high fives and give them hugs and everything. No, they are fantastic. Yeah. It's really good. Yeah.
So, was that it?
Well, that's
we're here.
There we go. So basically, I was going to quickly show you if you haven't seen. Oh, here we go. So some of you may have seen the site temporarily went down yesterday. It was on purpose just for this talk. But luckily we got the site back up and running again, and so this is High Five Rock currently. It's quite a simple site. It just has a Twitter wall showing if you do hashtag High Five Rock, it loads in and just kind of displays everything here. There's a wee bit of information about what the High Five Rock project is, and we do invite anybody that wants to be part of the High Five Rock project, please get in touch. This is just, as you'll see, we've got beta version, which gets us out of everything. So if it doesn't work, it's beta. That'll probably be there for a year or two. So, but if you do want to be part of the project, please come and speak to us, and we would be really grateful for any of your help in any way. But yeah, we've got big plans. High Five Rock's not just for Umbraco. It's a whole kind of just cool to give and acknowledge people that have done really cool things in the tech industry. But Umbraco have kind of adopted it as their thing, but it is a whole world out there, and we're going to try and tap into that. So we'd love to kind of bring you all on board and watch us grow. We might be back next year going Imposters of the Cloud Part 2. So yeah, any questions?
Yes.
Oh no.
That's a microphone.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for the talk. I've only done one project on the cloud, and I was also very confused about the two Git repos. I also had my front-end stuff in the Git repo like you. Yeah. But the one problem I was not able to fix was with my Razor views.
Yes.
Because I think they belong as much to the front end as the other stuff.
Yeah.
And the Umbraco Cloud Git repo was owned by my client, and I owned the other repo. So I actually owned half the front end stuff.
I can tell you, I've had the same problem. I have in some projects I've actually moved I've copied the views up into the core folder, so I do put things there. And then I have modified the deploy script to copy those from there. But then you have the problem of did I edit it in that one, or did I edit it? So it's just, and then I just need to say, as always, Git is the one truth. So if anyone has mangled the view on cloud or in the web folder, it'll be overridden by my deploy script. But that's what I've done for those where I think views. I'm doing those. That should be mine. They shouldn't just live in the cloud repository, I think. So yeah, that's the only thing I've been able to do for that. Yeah, it feels shaky. Yeah. Mm. Anything else? Anyone else?
I'll try and keep this to only a few. For the API keys, you might consider Azure Key Vault. That's what we use.
Okay.
Because we like to keep ownership of the API keys, else the
Yeah.
clients see what else they can do with them. Yeah. And it's quite easy to integrate. And that way you don't have to put it in your repo also.
Quite easy, if you know how to do it.
I told yeah, you just super obvious.
Just simples and it's easy to do.
Yeah.
There's a really nice blog post that I followed. Was that yours?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Mikkel's blog post. I just followed along on that. So
Azure Key Vaults.
and yeah, Azure Key Vault. And so there's no way I could have figured that out.
No,
Anyhow, and then the other thing is for it, I totally get what you mean about the onboarding process. It's very different from how we've learned to work with Umbraco.
Yeah.
And there's no kind of like, hey, I know you're really experienced in Umbraco, but this is a different way of doing it. So don't fuck everything up and do it the way that you've been doing it for the last 10 years.
Yeah, it was kind of when I originally kind of decided we're going to put it onto the cloud, it was like, well, I know how to do kind of like put an Umbraco site together, and hey presto, we'll make it open source, and everything's going to be hunky dory. And I spent probably 3 months going, why isn't this working? And I think Matt and Nick and a couple of others were trying to pull down my repos and stuff, and I'm going, this isn't working. I was like, it should work. And then eventually I had a really good phone call with Morton at HQ, and he goes, yeah, it's not really going to work this way. And then all of a sudden, within 4 weeks, we've got the site running. So I should have asked that question much earlier. But yeah, it's a different way of working, and trying to make it community project, it's been problematic.
Sure, and that's actually my last comment. Just trying to make it to be a multi-contributor project in its default setup is actually not a great fit. That's exactly the same conclusion I came to.
Yeah.
And I want to say but you might want to consider reading some Script articles that we published last year around how you can further abstract that repo. So it's it requires building a build process.
Yeah.
And that's what. So you just get it away from the repo. Mm-hmm. Contributions don't get deployed.
Okay.
Immediately. It's worth a look.
Yeah. No, totally. Cheers.
Cool.
Just pause the mic. I want to say first thanks for the subject, because imposter syndrome it's present more often than you would think. Actually, I was going to suggest Azure Key Vault, but I wasn't sure because I haven't used it. I wasn't sure. I wasn't going to say anything.
Perfect.
And I had a question. Did you ever find out how to multiply two numbers without multiplying?
I did. The funny thing is now that in my day job, I write mortgage calculators for a bank. So which back then, really? So yeah, I did. Thank you.
We have one up here.
I can project it. It's more of a comment too, but I also struggled with schema mismatches and things like that. When I first started working with cloud, which is around the same time as you fellas did, actually, I ended up one Friday night on a call with Nick, who I think is here, asking how I'd balked it so badly. And what I did was realise there was a schema mismatch, and then just went about deleting doc types from one of the three environments, I forget which, and then I sort of asked for help and was pointed at the documentation, read the first step, and thought, oh, I know what I'm doing, went off and did what I do as an Umbraco developer and started fixing things, broke it even worse. So, and what Nick advised me to do, and what the documentation actually said, was to approach this stuff carefully and read through. But I agree, it's completely counterintuitive to what we've been doing for so many years. And I'd love to see that documentation really pushed as you first pick up cloud, because none of it is particularly obvious or intuitive. No. So.
You know, I think it is the problem that we kind of, as Umbraco developers, we kind of just go, we know how to use Umbraco, and it's version 8, but nah, it's cool, we still know how to use it. And I don't read the documentation as in depth. I kind of did the same as you. Kind of went, oh, yeah, I know how to do this, and just make it worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of things that you can learn by read it first.
Read it first, and it's a big one for read it first.
Yeah,
I think the support team have been amazing,
Yeah.
and if you've seen Haldor and Eric around, I especially need to give them hugs. So let me know if you see them.
We'll just put them in a row,
Yeah.
and everybody can just walk past and go
Fine.
tick, 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 tick.
Thanks.
Cool.
Do you have a Trello board or anything for your roadmap?
Started, and then I got so in depth just trying to get this site running. The plan is, yeah, that we've kind of got a separate Slack channel, but my plan is to update the Git repo that we do have, get rid of the old stuff that doesn't work, things like this, and put documentation on how you can contribute. Basically, because you kind of have to contact me. I want to get rid of that as well, of having a team of admins that can add people, and the plan is we'll have a Trello board or something that we can put issues on, and where the plan is, for those of you who know the real background of Hi5uRock, where it originally started, with Alexander, I've had phone calls with him, and we've got big plans for Hi5uRock, so I need developers that are better than I am. That's all I'm going to say, because he's like, oh, you could do this. Yes, I'm sure we can.
Differently experienced rather than better.
I like that. Oh, I like that.
Yes.
Take a note of that.
Thanks
So,
for Emma.
cool.
Anyone else? Then I think we'll say a massive thank you and high five.
Hi5uRock.
Yeah.
Sure.